Uh,
Okay, welcome everybody. Um, all right, the recording started. This is Tom at LPA, and today we are doing our fourth quarter training, or our quarterly training. The topic today is inventory mastery, and the goals here really are, there are a number of questions that I would say we as LPA get asked on a regular basis. And the goal for today is I want to hit some of those common questions. Um, and honestly, I consider this slightly above basic training, because basic training is just being able to get into Counterpoint, create an item, and kind of survive. And this is all about that next step, that next level of dealing with your life and managing your inventory on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis. I'm willing to bet, let's see here, let's go to our next slide here. I'm willing to bet I don't have to convince anybody why having a good handle on your inventory or managing your inventory is important. Obviously, none of us would stay in business if we didn't know what we were buying, what we were selling, and if we were making any money. So hopefully no one needs any convincing that that's important. Plus, you're already on this call, so my guess is you find some value in this. Today, as we talk about some of the common questions that come up, some of the immediate ones we're going to go over. A really common one is this question about what is quantity on hand versus quantity available. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. And another very, very common question is you look at some item and the quantity on hand just doesn't make sense to you, or it has reached or arrived at a particular current cost, and you're just like, I just don't understand how that item could be at that cost. So we're going to start out there. There's a few more sections we're going to talk about today, obviously, but I'm going to start off with these. We're talking about these things about quantity on hand and seeing where things went wrong. So to do this, I'm going to pop into my local demo company here. And we're going to start off with this question about quantity available versus quantity on hand. This I get asked this question all the time. So from my main menu, I'm going to go over to inventory items. And I'm just going to pull up an example item here real quick here. I'm going to pull up an item. This is an umbrella. And from my main menu or my main inventory form here, I can see my quantity on hand says 26. My quantity available says 20. And I get questions all the time. People call me up and say, well, what does that mean? What's the difference? Why is there a difference? To learn more about what's going on here, one thing you can do is you can just use your item zoom. Z is for zoom. These are all available all throughout Counterpoint. I'm going to zoom this item. Zoom just means more information. And in my demo company, I've got 3 locations, and I can see my quantity on hand. I've got 3 at East. I've got 16 at Main. I've got 7 at storage. And in terms of commits, no commits at East or at storage, but at my main location, 6 are committed. And what committed means is an item is spoken for in one way or another, whether it's on an order or it's already been sold today and we haven't posted yet, but one way or another that's spoken for. So that's when we talk about, quantity on hand versus quantity available, that's what's happening. Now, the next question, of course, is always, well, where's the commit, or what is speaking for that item? And I'm going to show you how to find that out. But that very first step is simply when these numbers are different, you can go look at your Zoom, especially if you have multiple locations, and get an idea of where those individual quantities are coming from. From there, down the bottom left, you may or may not have ever clicked on this before, but there's a button labeled Inventory. And when I click on Inventory, it pulls up this new form. It may not be obvious, but there are multiple records here, and I can prove it by using my forward-backward button to show you that here's East, here's Main, here's storage. Another way to see that is if I go to my table view, it's a little more visually obvious that, oh, okay, I've got one item, but I've got information for 3 locations, okay? And in this example, we were talking about how quantity on hand at East and storage matches quantity available. We have this difference at Main. So I'm going to go to my main location here. I'm going to go back to my record view. And you can also see those quantity on hand, quantity commit, quantity available. You can see those numbers over here to the right. And here's a really easy way to learn more information. This says there are 6 committed for Maine, and I get questions all the time. What does that mean? Where are they committed? Once you get to this inventory tab and you've pulled up your location, down here there's this very handy button called View Commitments. And I'm just going to click on that. And here's this handy little report. And I'll make this a little bigger so we can see it. And in this example, my umbrella happens to be on, I've got 3 separate point of sale orders, each of which are claiming some of those quantities. So if you know anything about orders in Counterpoint, an order commits quantity, meaning it's spoken for. So we might physically have it in the building. If you went back and looked, you'd have 16 umbrellas, but 6 of these are spoken or promised, all right? So that's a little bit about that. And again, the quickest, easiest way if you're ever, tracing down these issues is to pull up your item, go to your inventory tab, use the forward backward buttons here to see where that commit is. And when you see that commit, you click on this and you get this nice report. It'll tell you what's going on. Now in that example, that was an order, but you can also, if something was already sold today, that would be an example of a commit, and I'll show you what that might look like. I'm gonna pull up a different item. This is a putter in my little golf store. Now, right now, beginning of the day, quantity on hand is 25, quantity available is 25. Okay, there are no commits. I don't have to look any further. Those match. But I'm going to prove to you that as soon as I sell an item, so beginning of the day, those match. If I go to my touchscreen here, I'm going to just purposely sell one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and sell one of these. And if I go back to my item, you'll notice that quantity available dropped down. And that can be confusing to people because that putter did leave the building, right? It's really not in the building. But the way Counterpoint works is quantity on hand is that starting value beginning of the day. And all throughout the day, quantity on hand is going to stay there at 25 as you sell, and quantity available is going down. At night, when we post, whether you post end of the day or we automatically post overnight, we will post and those will catch up and those two will match again. But right now, that quantity available, there's one that's been sold. And let's prove this. If I go to my inventory, if I pull up my main location again, and I go to my commits, I expect we'll see, there it is, our one ticket, right? The one we just sold. Later today, we're going to post that eventually, and then those will match up again. But that's another way that your quantity available, quantity on hand can be different during the course of the day. Because Counterpoint, if you want to know, I guess the easiest way I could say this, if you want to know what you really have available to sell at any one time, the quantity you want to be looking for is the one that's called quantity available, right? Quantity on hand is going to change or reflects beginning of the day, etc. So that's a little bit about that topic of quantity on hand versus quantity available. And again, that's a very common question. I probably get asked that once every 3 weeks easily. The next thing I want to talk about is give you some tools for how you research problems, because this is a very common question. I'll get someone, they'll call me up. Let me see if I can pull up an item here. This is just an example of some golf balls or whatnot. I'll get a call and they'll say, I got this item and it says we have 45 on hand. And that just, it just doesn't make sense. If I zoom this item, I can go look at Maine. It says I have, close to 25 on hand at Maine. I don't understand that. I don't know how we got there, right? That's a really common question. So I'm going to give you a really useful tool. This may be one of my favorite reports in all of Counterpoint, to be quite honest. I'm going to head over to Inventory and then Reports. And it's the third one over. It's called Inventory History. And the reason why I like this so much is this gives me a lot of clues if I'm researching an item and basically finding out how did we get here, right? That's a really common question. How did I get here? So I'm going to go in, I'm going to put in my done This is my set of golf balls or whatever. I'm going to start off. I'm just going to look at one location just to keep this simple. And for starters, I'm going to preview this date range wide open. In the real world, I'd probably just go back to your most recent physical count, because when you do a physical count, that's a hard line in the sand. What happened before that almost doesn't matter. We just really look at what's happened since then, because you set the quantity there, and we look at what's happened since. But in this case, I'm just going to run this wide open, and we will preview this. And here we go. So it might look a little overwhelming at first, but let me tell you what we're seeing here. So again, this is a history for your item. This is a blow by blow of what's happened since, and I ran it wide open. So for me, this is since the beginning of time. So back, you remember New Year's Eve of 2001, right? You all remember that night? Anyway, I guess I was here at work doing adjustments. But anyway, that was the starting point for this item. And then there was some receivings that happened. It's all demo data, of course, but you can see kind of the path of what happened. For each thing that happened, it's telling me a quantity, it's telling me a cost, and that cost can be very helpful too, because sometimes someone might receive something, there's a typo, they meant to receive something at $10, and they accidentally receive it at $1,000 each, and all of a sudden their last cost makes no sense, or their average cost makes no sense. You can come in and look at these, and those kind of problems usually stand out, because you just look down this unit cost field, and you'll see these are all kind of standard. You can see they're going 21, 21, 21, and you'll get some, all of a sudden there'll be a $1,200 receiving or something. So those kind of issues are usually pretty quick to find when you know about this report. If you're just chasing down, how did we get to this quantity? You can see this is where we started, and sales, you can see our negative numbers. That means because they're leaving the building, right? So we're taking them out of inventory. In this case, my adjustments were positive. Receivings are typically positive. And I'm just going to scroll down here. Other things that might happen. You might transfer it to a different location, or you might transfer in from a different location. And on the next page, there's only one page total. So now I have my summaries or my totals. But again, such a handy report. I probably am helping someone with this about once every 2 weeks somewhere, where someone calls up and says, this item just doesn't make sense, or I just don't understand how it could possibly be that, we have, 25 of this item. We only have 2 on the shelf. How did we get there? So this super, super helpful report. If you want to ask any questions on the chat window right now about that report, I'm going to turn on my chat window. If anybody has a question on the inventory report, now's your chance. Just give it a moment, see if anyone wants to chime in. If not, I'm going to go. Oh, is there a way to fix it? Good question, Kate. Thank you. Okay, let's say it's a quantity on hand. Hey, thank you, Rick and Joe, who said excellent information. I will take all the comments, all the positive comments you got. Yeah, let's talk about, let's say it's wrong, right? Let's say it's an issue with quantity on hand. You come in and, well, for whatever reason, Counterpoint thinks you have 25, but you have 2, and you come in and you find out a really common thing, what I've seen, maybe the person that does receivings goes on vacation for 2 weeks, and nobody does that for 2 weeks, and then they come back and life goes on, and one day we look at this and say, why are these numbers so wrong? Well, we just never did the receiving. So in those cases, the quantity on hand goes real negative, and then we have to fix it at some point. So let's talk about fixes. One of the simplest things you can do, if it's an individual item that you're off, a really simple fix from the main menu, you could go to Inventory, Adjustments, Inventory Adjustments, Enter. And I'm going to pick on just one item here, and I'm just using my tab key to move down the row there. And over on the left, it's very handy. It's telling me current quantity on hand. I'm doing this for my main location. And maybe I know that 25 is just dead wrong, right? That it's supposed to be, I don't know, that's supposed to be 35 or something. I can just do my adjustment over here to get this to whatever it should be. So 10 would be adjusting up, increasing my quantity on hand. If I did, let's say -5, then that's taking it out of inventory. So that if you're just spot checking or you're fixing an individual item, you can come in here, pick an individual item, pick your location. I'm not going to really pull the trigger here, but if I went any further, I would click post. And in this case, it would take those 5 out of inventory. There's something else I wanted to say about that. Let's see. Oh, I know. That's if you're fixing an individual item. If you feel like you have an entire category or entire vendor, or maybe just across the board you feel like your quantities are not correct, then obviously we as LPA, we're going to be recommending, hey, time to do a physical count, right? Whether you do a smaller section of the store, like do it by a category or by a vendor, which we call a cycle count, or whether it's time to just do the big, once or twice a year, count the whole store and bring things into line. That may be where you're headed if you have a lot of things that are out of whack, or maybe you've had a lot of transition of the people that manage your inventory and things have just kind of got off course over time. If that's the case, chances are physical counts, they cover a multitude of sins and can get you back on track. If any of you have been in my previous trainings on other topics related to inventory of physical counts, you know that if your biggest goal is you want the numbers in counterpoint, your quantities to mean something, the starting point is a good physical count. We have to have that line in the sand where we have numbers that mean something. And then we make sure that all your processes, whether you are receiving or you're transferring or you're selling every day, we want to make sure if it happens in the real world, it happens in counterpoint. I have plenty of customers who get really good at this. The ones who get really good at it, stay on top of it, manage it, monitor it. And if it happens in the real world, it happens in counterpoint. And for those folks, you can go look at a quantity on hand. If it says you've got 7, whatever, they know that if you go out on the floor, you're going to find 7 because they stay on top of it. So it is definitely possible. It does take a little bit of effort, and kind of making it a priority is a big part of that. All right, so I'm going to go on here. So far, we've talked about the quantity on hand and quantity available. Here is a really common question. I probably get asked this question every 2 weeks. I have an item. Let me see if I can find a good example here. Well, for lack of a better item, we'll call this test item. So I've got this test item. It got created at some point, and for whatever reason, it was created as an inventory item. And now later on down the road, we realize, you know what, this shouldn't have been created as an inventory item. I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe you're a furniture store and this is a refinish a chair, and that's a service. That's not an inventory item. Sometimes people just start off. They have some certain items they're planning that they're going to keep track of the quantities and everything else, and after a while they just realize, you know what, that particular item we're not going to track. It's enough that we can sell it. We don't really buy and receive them, but believe it or not, it'd just be better off if we didn't have that as an inventory item. So you might know the very, very first time you create an item, over here under item type, there's a whole list of choices. I'll even prove it to you by going down the line. If I was creating a brand new item, when you're creating a brand new item, you have a whole bunch of choices, right? And if you were doing this the very first day, you might have chosen this to be a non-inventory item. And maybe somehow this just got into your system, and now a year later or 3 years later, you just want to fix or correct this problem, okay? So we know there's other choices here, but I'm going to go back to my test item. And my test item, it appears like you don't have the choice, right? And some of you might have come across this before, right? I go here, I try to click that, and it doesn't seem like it could change it. Same is true with tracking method. I won't do the example of changing a grid or a non-gridded item to a gridded item, but the rules are the same, or the process is the same. It seems as if once you created the item, you can't change it. The answer is you actually can, but you have to know a few things, and I'm going to walk you through the steps. The steps to do this are, Counterpoint's not letting us change these because with this item, there's this thing called inventory records that go along with this item. And we were just down here a minute ago, but I'll show you again. If I go to inventory, if I go to my table view, there are these 3 supporting records that go along with this item. And once these three supporting records exist, that's why Counterpoint doesn't let us willy-nilly change this, because we're kind of like, we can't change horses in the middle of the stream. The good news is, if you really need to, it is possible. And the way we're going to do it is, we're going to go remove these inventory items. And right now I can see we've got 8 at main and 2 at storage. We're going to adjust those out. And when we have these all down to 0, we're going to be able to delete these records, and then we'll be able to do whatever we want with this inventory type. I do have a nice cheat sheet document that walks you through these steps. So as a follow-up to this training, if anybody wants the cheat sheet notes, just email Frank at LPA Retail, and we'll get you the cheat sheet notes for how to do this. But I'm going to go do the steps right now. This will be on the recording, which we'll be sending out also. So I know that and by the way, if these are all zeros, I could just delete these records now and we go on our merry way with changing the type. But since these have some quantities, I'm going to go do some inventory adjustments, get these to 0. I'm going to do these steps kind of quickly for the sake of time, but I'm going to adjust those out. So this is item. I'm going to scoop this up into my clipboard, save some time. So I'm going to do this. We were just doing this a minute ago. I'm going to go to inventory adjustments, and for main, I know I've got a few here. I've got 8, so I'm going to take -8 out of inventory. So my new quantity will be 0. That looks good. I'm going to say post, and I'm going to rinse and repeat for, I believe it was East had some. Did I do that wrong, or was it storage? I think I got that wrong. Okay, so storage had a couple. I'm going to take those out, -2, and I will post those. And so by doing that, those are inventory adjustments. I'm going to go back. We'll go back to inventory items, and check this guy out. You'll notice my quantity of hands are now 0. If I go down to my inventory records, table view, you'll see all zeros. Okay. In this view, I'm going to come here. I got to delete. If those were not 0, or if this was on a sale, Counterpoint's going to stop me. So we'll find out if I'm going to be allowed to do this today. Okay, so no quantity in hand. They weren't tied up on a transaction someplace. So I just was able to take out those records. And now you say, well, Tom, okay, sometimes this won't immediately open up. Sometimes you have to leave the item form and come back. I'm glad this just opened up. Had it not just come back open like it did, I would have probably left here, come back in. It's a very common thing to do. And now coming back in, I remove those inventory records. And now we're back up to Counterpoint saying, what kind of item do you want this to be? Because without the inventory record, Counterpoint doesn't really know how we're going to treat this item. So in this case, I'm going to say this is a non-inventory item, and I'm going to hit save, but we're not quite out of the woods yet. I've got to go back to my inventory tab, and I'll show you in table view. There's no records here. If I tried to ring this up at the store right now, it would say, this item's not stocked at this location. You're like, what does that mean? What do you mean not stocked? Not stocked means we don't have these supporting records. Now, the good news is when I'm in the standard record view or whatever, they've got a button just for this called create inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. It'll say create for all locations. I say, okay. 3 records created, fantastic. And if I go to my table view, there they are. So now this is going to ring up just fine at the register. And most importantly, this is now a non-inventory item. So to prove that, we'll go out, come in, and now this should be locked down to a non-inventory. We have our supporting inventory records, and life is all good. So that's that. And I'm trying to think, sometimes people say, well, what's a really good example of a non-inventory? Again, it might be service type items. Sometimes if you sell, someone else has products in your store and you're selling them for them, but you don't really own the merchandise, you just have to keep track of sales. This might be a good example of a non-inventory, because all you want to do is track that you sold it. You're never going to count it. So that would be an example of that. I know there's a few steps involved in that, but that's why I'll be happy to send the cheat sheet. And I'm checking over at the comments here or the chat and see if there's any questions. I'm going back to Kate had a question just on the physical count. The question was, so I adjust inventory every winter after a physical count, and we tried this method, but it adjusts both quantity available and quantity hand for me. So they are both still off. What am I doing wrong? Kate, I guess I would have to share a screen with you and see more specifically what's going on. Typically, yeah, if you do a physical count, the quantity on hand and quantity available should both change. But maybe I just have to see more specifically what's going on. So if and when that comes up, Kate, please reach out to us. Either myself or someone else can look at that. And someone's asking about the process that I just did. Yeah, if they're in my example I just did, let's say that test item, if it was sitting out there on an order someplace, then it would have been a little harder. I wouldn't have been able to just delete the inventory records the way I did. So that would get to be a little more involved, right? If that was the case, I'd have to go find the order. I might have to edit the order and temporarily take it off the order and put it back on. Usually when this happens, these are items that people are doing it before the beginning of the day, before it's on any sales. Oftentimes it might be an item that they're not dealing with very often. So it doesn't get committed on a bunch of places, but that is a good question. If it was committed someplace, you'd have to go deal with that, whatever that might mean. Someone asked, can you use the same method to edit grid cells? Absolutely. Let me go back to a gridded item real quick here. Find a chart. For those of you who don't do gridded items are oftentimes clothing, things that have a color or a size, that kind of thing. Now, the question was, can you do this for grids? Number one, I hope everyone knows that you can come in and add new grid dimensions at any time. You just use the little plus here, opens that up. And what's another good? How about blue, red, sandstone, and green? So you can add a new grid like that. You could even add a new size. We've got small, medium. I could add extra large. You can do these things. You could highlight an existing grid and delete it, again, as long as it's not tied up on a transaction someplace. So if you're just talking about editing grids, you can do that without having to do the whole rigmarole I just showed you about deleting inventory records. The only time you get into deleting inventory records is if you had an item that was not gridded. So for example, I have, let's say, see if I can find an example. Here's some random item. Today it's not gridded, but I realized after I created, oh my gosh, that was supposed to be gridded because we sell those in 3 sizes. Then you could do the steps we talked about before. Take out your inventory records. You get to change the track method to gridded and then add your inventory records back in. All right. Okay, I'm getting some different comments from different folks saying thank you. They've been wondering how to do this. So they're saying thank you that they have a new trick to try. So there you go. I am not going to say any more on this particular topic. If you get into this, again, we'll send cheat sheet notes. But if you have questions on changing that, please let us know. Again, that's a pretty common one that comes up. Okay, I'm going to go back to our beautiful PowerPoint here. Pull this back up, and we're going to go on to our next section here. We've talked a little bit already about commits and how you find those. So we've already kind of talked about that. We just went over converting inventory items, how you convert a inventory item to non-inventory. Let's talk briefly just about merging 2 items and also renumbering. This is a common question that comes up. This oftentimes happens where just in the fast pace of life, suddenly you realize there's 2 items in your system and really they're the same exact item. And some people use one and some people use the other, and it gets confusing and you're never quite sure which one you're supposed to use. So I'm going to show you there is a way in Counterpoint we can merge those, which is always nice, right? Limit the complexity of life if we can combine those. A separate but somewhat related topic is sometimes people just have an item number, and for whatever reason, they want that item number to be different. The steps for this look kind of similar, so we're going to talk about them both at the same time. So to do that, I'm going to pop back over to my demo company here. And let's see, I'm going to quickly glance at my items and see. Tell you what, I'm going to purposely create a test item 200 if I don't have one today. So let's see what I have for test items. Blah, blah, blah. All right, well, let's see. I want this to be a halfway decent test or example. So so we have this item called test item 328. I'm purposely going to create another one. Call it test item 329. And here's an example of life has gone on, life got busy, and suddenly one day you go to do a lookup, and when you go look for your test item, whatever, you notice, wait a second, why do I have a test item 328 and 329? Those are supposed to be the same item. So first step is how you can merge. Here's how you can merge two items, all right? So to do this, we're going over to some place called Inventory and then Utilities, and it's called Merge Items. Now, when I go to this, most of you probably could have gotten this far on your own and been fine. Here's the step where everybody gets stuck. There is this thing that says group. If I click the lookup, there's nothing to look up. I can see down here, there's some fields that look like, pretty promising of being able to do what I want to do, but I can't seem to get to them. And here's the part that just is not intuitive, but we just have to give any kind of name to our group. Could be anything. I'm just going to call it merge, or I'm going to call it merge one. It doesn't matter. You could type in the name of your cat, but you have to put something in that field. Now, once you do that, you'll notice that the rest of this all opens up. Okay. And now down here, those are those fields I said, boy, that looks promising. I'll just put a description, merge on 3. From. So let's say the 329, this will say that was the duplicate. We didn't really intend for that to get created. And I'm going to merge it into my 328. Now, the two item, I'm going to call it or describe it as the winner. Okay, that's the one that's going to survive. The one that's the from, all of its sales history, if it has any inventory, receivings history, all that history and quantities and all that good stuff is going to go into the winning, the two item. But the two item is the one that's going to survive. All right. So to prove that point, and by the way, you can do more than one at one time. So you could go down to this next line. You could add a few more. Maybe you're cleaning up, you're doing some spring cleaning, and you got a whole bunch of these that you found. But you go find all the ones you want to merge together, pick your winners and your losers, and when you're ready, you can do this step. You can preview it. You can print it in advance. But when you're ready, you can click this button that says merge. Save current changes. Yes. Now, they're always going to preview this report. It's kind of like your last chance. They're saying, hey, here's what we're about to do, right? You're going from this item, 329, to this item. When I close this window, it's going to say, are you sure, right? Are you sure this is your last chance? And I'm going to say, yes, I am sure. You'll say it takes a little pause there. One merge succeeded. Fantastic. I'm going to go back over to inventory items and improve. When I go look up test item 320 survived, right? That's the one that stayed. You'll notice that previous one doesn't show up. Had I had any quantity on hands in either one of those would have been combined. Any sales history would have been combined. Counterpoint does do one nice thing for us. That previous item, its item number was 1 followed by 3 zeros followed by 2 0. It actually drops this in as a barcode to this item. And then if there have been any barcodes for that 320 item, it drops them in. It's kind of it's a considerate, thoughtful thing that Counterpoint did there, because if there happened to be some out on the floor, maybe they're labeled with that 100020 number, they'll still scan at the register, right? They'll ring up as the item that we want, which is this guy, but at least the stuff that's out on the floor is still going to scan, because we don't want everything to come crashing to a halt at the front register just because we merged some items, if that makes sense. So very thoughtful of Counterpoint to do that. Someone's asked me, can you merge an inventory item and a non-inventory item? I'm fairly certain the answer to that is no, because they are, you're mixing cats and dogs, right? They're two different animals. If you really wanted to do that, I would say the first step is pick one or the other and convert it to, let's say you want them both to be inventory items, convert the non-inventory item to an inventory item, and then you should be able to merge them. And someone's asking, should merging be done in the morning before any sales? It doesn't matter, because Counterpoint will do the same day tables right along with history. I will say I lean slightly towards, if you're making big changes, doing it before the day starts. Just, there's less moving parts. But no, Counterpoint will update all the tables, including sales that have happened today. I like doing things before the day starts, right? If there was a problem, less things to check, easier to straighten out. Other questions? Let's see, Justin has a question about, if I have an item with one part number from a supplier and a different part number from the other supplier, I believe, you can test this out, Justin, but I believe in that example, we're now talking about vendor items. I believe, without even testing, about 100%, I'm not 100% on anything in life, but I feel pretty 100% on this. Any vendor items, Counterpoint would have swept into here. If they didn't, then we'd be breaking things, right? So you have two separate items, you decide to merge them. If there was vendor items, they'll be here. You can try it, Justin, but I fully expect you'll, in the winner, the 2 item, you go look at your vendor items and it will pull in those vendors. If it's the same exact vendor, though, that's a good question. Which one? I don't know which one wins. You'd have to try it and find out. I don't know that without trying it. Boy, you guys, in past sessions, I've had like 3 questions in an hour. You guys are breaking all the records. You guys have lots of questions. I'm checking the logs here, or the chat window. Mary. Okay, I'm sorry, Aaron. Aaron is stating that he has done this a lot of times, thousands of times, and he has a tip for the room, tip for everybody. Make sure your vendor units are the same on both items. And I think when he says vendor units, some people may not deal in vendor units, but you have off the main tab, you have your stocking unit. That's what you count or how you sell. On the units tab, oftentimes you'll have an alt1 unit. Oftentimes we'll use that for vendor. That might be how you purchase it. So you maybe purchasing cases of 24. If you use vendor units, Aaron's recommending that you make those match. Otherwise, you can get into weird cases. Yeah, case 12, case 6, etc. There's a question, will this autocorrect the item on special order? Yeah, any open orders, whatever, if you merge 2 items, it will update on the order. So merge, it's been around forever. I help people do this all the time. In general, doesn't break things. Counterpoint is smart enough to go look every place that item might exist. It will update that. So I've had good luck with merges. All right, I want to keep moving forward here because we have a few more things to get to before the day is done. I mentioned earlier, we were talking about that's merge item. There's also, if I'm in the same area, inventory utilities. There's also something called renumber items. And the only reason I'm going here, this probably is lesser asked about. I get less questions about these, but I just want you to see this form. It really looks identical, right? And it's the same thing. You need to put in some kind of group. It can be anything. I could call this test, for my group. And once I hit tab or enter, then the rest of the form opens up. I won't do the full example here because honestly, it's exactly the same steps, but the same concept. You have some item number for whatever reason. You could just not go on. You could not face another day of life with this item number. Let's see if I find one. Oh, this guy. For whatever reason, you just cannot face another day of having 100017. Um, and so you could come in and you could rename this to whatever item number you desired. Maybe for whatever reason, this really needed to be blah, 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 17 AKB or AKD, whatever. For some reason, you just had to have a different, you can do that. You would put this in here. You can do multiple at a time. When you're ready, hit renumber, same thing, pops the report. You get to see the report. And if you like what you see, you do that. So again, merge and renumber, really the forms that are even right next to each other, really follow the same pattern. So I'm not gonna spend any more time on those two, but are we good there? Everybody okay? Okay, what I really want to get to is section 3 of our beautiful PowerPoint. Man, this is just so fancy today. Leveraging inventory reports, or as I would put it, how about looking at some cool reports to make your lives better? All right. There are 3 that I really want to hit in our time remaining. See if we can get to all 3. There is valuation, and I'll show you examples of these. There's something called a retail value report, which although that may be the most boring name on the planet, is a super cool report that I want to show you. And lastly, I'll show you a bestseller report, which is just kind of a nifty, wow your friends and impress your neighbors with a bestseller report. So let's I think I can get through these. Wish me luck. Here we go. Let's talk about these reports. So the first one I want to talk about, and maybe many of you already know this already, but if you go to inventory reports, there is a report called valuation. And this is the report. If I ran this on any given day, I'm going to just pick one location. This is your valuation as of today, okay? And if I go to the last page, this is just my demo company. Then I will have whatever my quantity on hand is, and I'll have my cost and my retail value. That report is always today, okay? And where people get into trouble is they know all about that report, but then they get to the second week of January and their accountant calls up and says, hey, go ahead and send over that report, your valuation on December 31st. Remember when you drove in on Sunday afternoon and ran that report because you knew I was going to ask for this? And they say, I don't have that report. So historical valuation on my menu, it's just right above it. Okay, historical. If you don't know how to search for stuff, here's a handy thing. The search window, I could look for historical. I think there's only one historical, well, there's 2. Historical valuation. Okay, if you don't know where to find stuff, use your search. What's cool about this is you get to pick the date. So instead of, maybe I need to know, March, or I'm sorry, let's say last day of February 2024, I needed this valuation. I forgot to run the report. I get to pick how I group this report. I'm just going to preview it as is, group by category. I'll even include a pie chart, although my demo data it's not going to be very exciting. Yeah, all my items are golf. Not a very exciting pie chart. That's so unexciting. I'm going to take it off the report. But here's our evaluation. Most importantly is that the fact that I could do this in the past. I chose to group this by category, but I could have also said I want to analyze at an item level. I can still group by category if I wanted to. So that's just a nifty little report, okay? The standard valuation report doesn't give you all those nice groupings of categories and whatnot. So if you you like that grouping look, you might use the history version even for the same day, just because you get those nice groupings. So that's cool report number 1, okay? I'm gonna go kind of quick here because I got 2 more to get through, plus leave some time for questions. Cool report number 2, this is under inventory, it's called retail value. And I am embarrassed to tell you that I worked at LPA a solid 15 years before I realized how cool this report was. And yes, I'm coming up on my 19-year anniversary, so it took me a long time to learn this. But this thing, retail value, I'm just going to show you an example. I've got a date range of month to date. I'm just going to preview this and show you what this is. Now you might say, well, why does he get so excited about this? I'll tell you why. For years before I knew about this report, people asked me essentially this question, and I didn't know where to send them. I didn't know how to help them. I'm grouping this by category, but we could have done this at an item level. And if any of you, if you're familiar with the concept of something called open to buy, or that's something that people are pestering you about at your company, even though this report is not titled open to buy, it sure provides you a lot of the numbers that open to buy people care about. So when I say that, what I mean is I ran this for the month of March, and you'll see it gave me a beginning for, let's look at category golf. It gave me some beginning numbers, and boy, is this ever cool. If you've ever tried to find these numbers right now, you're doing backflips. My beginning at retail, my beginning of the month at cost, and units means quantity, right? So for a category, that's where I started March 1st, retail, cost, quantity. Now, these other columns just tell me what happened. This is kind of a nice high-level view. What did I receive? Now, a lot of people, when you do open to buy, half of them say, we only care about retail, and the other half say, we only care about cost. Well, guess what? You can have both. Whichever you care, however you want to view, you can look at either. So I can see what happened in terms of what did I receive, what did I do for adjustments. If I have multiple locations, what did I transfer, what were my sales. For the retail dollars, we get into things called discounts and markdowns, and then what we ended. So how cool. And again, if you're the person in your company that's responsible for this kind of information, you may have been tracking all this in Excel spreadsheets the last 10 years of your life. Here's something that might make your life easier. I'm looking at the comments. I'm really hoping at least one person comments in the chat and says, my gosh, I've been looking for this. No chats yet. I'm hoping at least one person's going to say, wow, is that fantastic? On this, you get to pick and choose. Maybe you say, we don't care about, I don't know, you don't care about cost. You just care about retail value. You can pick and choose. You can take those right off the report. I don't know why you would, but now we just get down to retail dollars if that's the only thing you care about. So super cool. I grouped that or I looked at it at a category level, but you could get down to the nitty gritty and you could look at this at an item level, still show your category groupings or vendor category. Sometimes with open to buy, you really care about who the vendor is, so you can group that. But super cool. I'll just preview this with the items so you can see if you want the minutia, you can see by item. Here's the jacket. What did I have at the beginning of March? Not much movement on that item. I ended where I began. So how cool is that? Okay, Rick and Joe, they jumped in. Cool report. Yeah, they're making fun of the pie chart. Thank you, Kate, who says, yes, I use this all the time. And thank you, David, for, wow, that is fantastic. It is fantastic. So if you got nothing out of today except this report, and someone says to you, how was the training? I want you to say it was fantastic. I learned about the retail value report, and they'll look at you like you're nuts until you preview it for them, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's information we use to run our business, right? So that's that. The last one I want to show you is bestseller. I'm running out of time. This is going to be kind of quick. This also is under inventory reports. It's called merchandise analysis. Some of you might already have this on your menus, but all I'm doing, I'm taking a standard report in Counterpoint, and instead of analyzing at a group level, I'm going to change that to by item. I'm going to say all. I'm going to group by category. Aren't you glad this is on the video so you can look at this if you want? And I get to say top, so I'll say top 10. Based on, we'll say based on quantity sold. So I chose those really quickly, but you'll have them in the video. You can recreate this. This is the merchandise analysis by item. I group by as it's shown here. And when I preview this, you're like, well, why does he care? This is going to become a bestsellers report. So this is grouped by category. Within each category, it's showing you my top sellers. So I based it off of quantity sold. You could have done it off of dollars, but how nifty is that? If you really want to impress the boss, then on the select columns, I've got a few things here like number of transactions, profit, all this stuff. You could put on here quantity on hand. I'm gonna take off profit for a second. I'm gonna give myself a little room. I could add quantity on hand. There's even one that says weeks on hand, I think, if I get there. So now this report Not only does it show you sales, which is always kind of nice to know, but since these are your best sellers, it's probably kind of important, especially if it's your job, to know that you got enough stock to keep this rolling, right? You don't want to run out of stock on the stuff that's your best sellers. So this nifty one single report, not only do you see who are your best sellers, what you're selling, what rate are they going out the door, but what do you have on hand and how much prediction, how many weeks do you have available? This is demo data, so I don't know if I see anything really cool in the weeks on hand. But you can see some of these. This one, if I'm selling, I don't know, I had a big date range. So if I sold 23 in 3 months, then yeah, I believe I've got about 10 weeks on hand. So nifty. Again, if you're the inventory manager, we just maybe made your life a little better. So I'm going to go back to this. So it's in the video where we got to this. Oh, by the way, once you dial this in, if you like your choices, hopefully you know about options, save parameters, and you can give this a name. I must have already done this because I got a bestseller up here. I'm going to call it bestseller 2 just so you can see. You can do that. You say save. Then the next time you come into the merchandise analysis report, you can just click, instead of having to remember all your settings, you can click on options, load parameters, and we'll go find bestseller 2. And then it pulls everything back. So that's a good tip or trick. That isn't just for the merchandise analysis report. That's for any reports in Counterpoint. Once you dial them in, you like your settings, whatever, super handy to go to options, save parameters, and the opposite of save parameters is load parameters. And you can give it a name, make it easy. I don't know if anybody from Cooks of Crocus Hill is on the call today. These guys are fantastic at this. You go open up their reports, you go look at options, they'll have 20 versions of a report for different ways they like to use it. All right, I'm watching the time. I want to be sure I left some time at the very, very end here for questions, especially because I had a video or I had a slide. So here's your chance. Anything to chime in before our time is through today? Okay, I'm getting a question from Justin. When doing physical count, can you explain a little bit what freeze means? Do I need that checked when importing physical count? Tell you what, Justin, for that, our last training was, we spent an entire hour just on physical counts. So Justin, in the chat, we put what your last name is because I've just seen your first name or what company you're with, Justin. You just put that in the chat because what I'll do is I'm going to email you that whole video because we spent the whole time talking about the freeze and all that stuff. All right. Some other questions are coming. How about changing a category, subcategory? I'll show you. It's not necessarily pretty, but there's no tools for that. But let's say I'm going to go into my inventory items. I'll go into table view and I'll use my filter. I'm just going to sort for one category. I probably don't have much in tennis. So I could come here, filter for a category, and then I could go through and line by line pick these and change these over. There are some shortcuts in Counterpoint. Easiest thing to do is probably just come in here and put in your clipboard, just pop, 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 pop. There's a really weird way in Counterpoint to do multiple records. I think we're running out of time here for me to show you that. If you really want to know how you can copy paste multiple records, shoot me an email. I'll show you that. I want to get to these other questions. Can you merge things that are the same item but purchased from different vendors? Absolutely, yes. We sell bulk items in multiple increments, can only correct items in whole amounts. Is there a way to fix this? I'm sorry, Charlie, I'm trying to understand the question here. We sell bulk items in multiple increments, but can only correct items in whole amounts. Charlie, on your question, when you say only correct in whole amounts, are you talking about inventory adjustments? Okay, so I'm going to see if I can address this question really quick. Shirley's talking about they have multiple units on items. Um, Let me just quickly see if I can find an item that has multiple units. Okay, my utility glove, this might be a good example. I want to see if I go to my adjustments. What am I doing wrong here? Hmm. I feel huh. Okay. So Shirley, to your question, I believe, and maybe I'm smoking my tie here. When I go to adjustments, I am allowed, it looks like it's opened up because this item has multiple units or yeah, alternate units. In my example, it looks like it's opening that up and I'm allowed, I could say I want to adjust in one or two cases. So please try that out. If for some reason that's not working for you, Charlie, would you put a call into us and I'll gladly share a screen with you and we'll see what's going on for you. David has a question. Let's see what we have here. Um, Going back to merch analysis reports, I can save my settings to track sales for a week. And if I go back to those save settings, I'm going to reread this and then I think we're going to be wrapping up here. So going back to, I can save my settings to track sales for so let's go back to that merchandise analysis. I think I understand what the question is here. Some reports in Counterpoint, it's not all, but some will have this thing here where it says instead of just putting in the dates, you have a drop down. And so you could, the question was, if I chose to do, last 7 days, the next time I run the report, will it know to, jump to the current date range? The answer to that is yes, if you're on a report that provides this ability. So you can see how I chose that. If I save that in my parameters, then every time I come in, it's going to refresh. Um, Not all counterpoint reports have that kind of nicety. But David, in answer to your question, if you're talking about merchandise analysis, then yes, you could pick, and there's lots of choices. You can look through the list and see if there's something here that's useful to you. There's last week, last 7 days. You can play around with those if that helps. Okay, he says yes. That answered my question. Seems to. Let's see. I lied. I was going to answer one more question. Easiest way to see sales of one category for last week. We'll probably end with this. Um, I'm going to head over to I'm sorry, I lied. Let's go over to sales history, reports. It's called sales by group. This is if you want to know sales by category for last week. Up here for the group by, instead of grouping by item, we can choose to group by as soon as I see it. It's going to be under items. I'm looking for item category. So you could group like that. You could say, you pick your date range. I'm going to do month to date, but you could do sales last week, whatever. Um, that should do it. You can pick and choose your columns, but chances are the defaults are pretty good. This would give you, because I group by category, and I'm going to include my pie chart. Hopefully this is exciting pie chart. Oh, that's an exciting pie chart. Hopefully, Joe, that's a answer to how do I see sales by category? If you have any follow-up questions on that, we've got a whole video just on reporting, Joe, that we could send you. We've done these quarterly trainings so much now, the last 2.5 years. We've got a quarterly training almost on all of the major things that we train on. So if there's something you're wondering about, we might have a video we can send your way or provide you access. So um, that is all I have for today. I appreciate everybody joining in. We will send a recording link or a link to this recording to everybody. If anybody wants my cheat sheets on converting non-inventory to inventory items, whatever, let us know and we will get those out to you as well. Oh, Mary, you said very nice thank you to me. Thank you, Mary. Rick and Joe, you said nice words too. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Heidi. You guys are the best. Oh, you're making my whole day. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yep, I see you guys. I appreciate. Oh my gosh, you guys are the best. Man, you make my whole day. Thank you, Tizer. Thank you, Nate. You guys, oh my gosh. Hi, Erica. You guys are too kind. You make me want to do this every day. Thank you. Holy cow. Thank you, Victoria. Take a bow. Yeah, Rick, there'll be no bows today, but good idea. Thank you, Justin. I owe you an email, Justin. I'm going to send that to you right now. Oh, you guys are going to make me cry. Thank you. Thank you, Linnea. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you all. I will talk to you all soon. Thank you and have a great day. Victoria, thank you. All right. Shut her down.